Now, imagine you logged into your Facebook page or other social media platforms one day and you simply couldn't get access. Well, Minister of Communications Dr. Omani Boama has hinted that government intends to implement measures to bring sanity into Ghana's cyberspace. Dr. Omani Boama says government shall act to end what he calls abuse of media freedoms by regulating the system. But the key issue is, do we need regulations to control use of social media in Ghana? How does this sit into the constitutionally guaranteed freedoms of expression? And are we heading towards examples of China where Facebook is strictly regulated? This is today's big story with me, Stephen Enti. For some time now, utterances on social media, particularly from some celebrities and the general citizens, have been intense. Criticism against government's action towards ending the current power crisis have dominated social media discourse, with Lydia Forcing, Yvonne Nelson, Sarkodie, all taking to social media to vent their frustrations on national issues and how it affects them. But now government says there is the need to bring sanity into the cyberspace to curb what it calls social media abuse. Dr. Omani Boama is Communications Minister who spoke today at an event to mark World Press Freedom Day. Let's watch.
I'm referring especially to the speed with which people such as citizen journalists put out information on social media without caring to cross-check their facts and figures. I'm also referring to the indecent haste with which reputable media houses, traditional or conventional, pick such information and publish them as the gospel truth without cross-checking. By engaging in such practices, you need to ask yourselves whether you end up crucifying the principles of sound journalism, ethics and law, or you advance the frontiers of this noble profession. Mr. Chairman, in recent times, we have been called upon on several occasions to help protect the privacy of individuals being negatively portrayed on social media. It is significant to note that these requests have come from all sides of the political divide, including non-politicians. We cannot and must not sustain such practices.
These were very, very interesting debate that the minister is raising here. Let's get onto the telephone lines now and speak to Dr. Audrey Gajapo, who is a senior lecturer at the School of Communication Studies, University of Ghana. She's an associate professor, I beg your pardon. Madam, good evening and thanks for your time.
Good evening.
Now, the minister makes a very important raises a very important issue. He says that there is the need to protect individual privacy by the way some people go on social media and perhaps drag the name and reputations of people in the mud. Do we kind of have a problem with the way social media functions within Ghana's social cultural context?
No, I think that social media, let's accept that there is antisocial behavior that goes on social media, just as you will find antisocial behavior happening in different spaces where human beings relate with each other and interact. And so that, let's be clear about that. So, for example, we see some of the things that may have been happening, let's say, in the space of school, cyberbullying. So instead of bullying the person in the school grounds, you transfer it onto social media, hate that you may speak at a rally or you may speak in a beer bar or whatever. We see that also in social media. So there's all of that problematic behavior happening on social media as well. And so my first thing is that when we talk about social media and whether we need to regulate it, we need to then weigh it against what we currently have, which is our freedom of speech, our speech rights, and ask ourselves if somebody said something offensive in this particular public arena, would I be able to win my day in court? So, for example, if because of the context in which this discussion is taking place, if some people, the celebrities were sitting together in an open meeting and they complained and they lambasted government about all kinds of things, even if it was offensive, could you really take them to court? And I'm not so sure that you could. Under what law would you charge them with? Under what offense charge them with?
But isn't that itself a problem? I mean, if you have a media space where you have absolutely no control, you are unable to put in place measures to protect individual rights and responsibilities, then it means we have a problem. Do you think that from this angle, we should be considering strict regulation or strict enforcement of some form of censorship or of a kind on social media?
How can you do that? Your constitution says that you must not censor. So you can only act after you've been somebody has committed a crime. So of course, it's going to have to be a debate about what your constitution allows and does not allow. You talked about privacy, and I think that in most places there's a general concern about data protection and privacy, but not from the point of view that the minister seems to be arguing, but from the point of view that says there should be laws and regulations that ensure people's right to privacy, so that the state doesn't intrude, so that other people don't intrude, so that organizations don't collect and store data from social media use it irresponsibly. So there are all of those things that one is concerned about. In the instance in which you said the question to me, I'm not so sure it was a breach of privacy.
I see.
You understand? It's not a privacy issue. People are exchanging information between friends, between people they relate to, between colleagues, and complaining about people they don't like or behavior they don't like or an issue they don't like. What's to control about that? I'm not so sure.
Right, Dr. Gajiwa, we're taking the discussion further. We have Alpha Money on the other telephone line, who is the president of the Ghana Journalists Association. We will engage him a little on the matter and we'll return to you. Mr. Money, good evening and thanks for joining us on today's big story.
Good evening, my brother.
Now, the minister made reference to the fact that the rate at which some media houses are picking up information on social media, rebroadcasting without putting in place necessary checks to cross-check actually the facts constitutes abuse. Do you see it that way as president of Ghana's Journalists Association?
First of all, let me say that the social media has come to give more meaning to people's constitutional rights and to receive information that starts to expand the concept of freedom of expression, freedom of the media. And in so many instances, social media give the traditional media hope and lead they follow and build their story. But on the flip side, social media activism is adding more ground to the already heavily sprinkled foreheads of consumers of social media because of the speed, the ease, and sometimes the restlessness and silentness with which they disseminate falsehoods, half-truths, and the like. So there's a need for us, there's a need for our legal brains in particular to take a hard look at what can be done, at least to regulate, maybe regulation may be.
But Mr. Money, do you think that the current trends on social media it's something that we should worry about. We've had a lot of people burst out. I mean, speak their mind. Sometimes in speaking their mind, they get a bit abusive. I mean, they use words that are not decent, and they tend to, in quote, insult personalities. Key example is Lydia Folson's rhetoric, which went on social media, and the responses that came. Do you feel that it's getting bad in Ghana? The trends are worse?
Certainly, we are overly worried about this thing because of the recklessness in so many times. Because people think, because it's determined content, you can do whatever you like. But I believe the decision rule of law and the principles which underpin social media, I think they can be alternated to social media. Principles of truth, accuracy, balance, and all that. Because of balance, yes, social media you can tell your competition indirectly. I think that our laws found on falsehood, found on attacking people's
personality.
Like the Constitution specifies state that the dignity of our sex can be invaluable. But what do you see on social media? People's dignity happen upon with careless abandon. We keep the reputation of falsehood, blatant falsehood. And the media, the traditional media sometimes double the effort by reproducing and parroting what they speak in social media.
Right.
I think just serve as a wake up call for legal based in Pakistan. At least to infuse some sanity, decency, and stability on with the platform.
But that's a critical issue. Mr. Moni, we will have you hold briefly. I'll go back to Dr. Audrey Gadjekpo. And Dr. Gadjekpo, when we talk about bringing sanity to the cyberspace, I mean, there are many who see such a comment, bringing sanity to the media space. They see it as a form of regulation. They see it as threatening media freedoms. But do you feel that we actually need sanity in the media space as it is now? Sanity on social media space, I beg your pardon.
Of course we do. We journalists themselves need to come up with protocols, self-regulatory protocols within their media organizations that guide them on how to use social media in order to do what they're supposed to do anyways, which is gather news and information accurately, verify what it is that they put before the public, ensure that they are not needlessly victimizing people, ensure that they are not disseminating falsehood and rumor. So as part of their routine of doing work, whether it is through information they gather on social media or elsewhere, they have their professional standards and their ethics to guide them. And they must make sure that applies to social media. Now, if there are particular instances in which social media is different from conventional ways of news gathering, then they ought to make regulations. For example, they could have regulations that says you should not hack into somebody's account. Because that's illegal. In fact, that's like theft. Okay?
Yeah.
And, and all of those things. But when it comes to content and the material that they source from social media, it makes it easier for rumors to circulate. And therefore, journalists have to be especially careful about the anonymity of social media. In other words, and the fact that it is a social space. And so people talk much more loosely than they would if they are in a more formalized space. So
but Doc, I wanted to interject earlier. If we look at countries like China, Cuba, Russia, Iran, where social media, Facebook in China is very strictly regulated. So if we go on and we say that we need some form of regulation for social media in Ghana, how different will that be from these countries where freedoms of expression really are very sorely restricted?
But that's just my point. I think if you recall, I started by saying that any regulations you make for social media or whatever media has to be compatible with your constitution. And we know that our constitution strongly protects freedom of speech and expression, not just of journalists, but of every citizen of Ghana, or every individual who resides in Ghana anyway. And as you know, social media is something that not only journalists use, everybody uses it.
Everybody.
So whatever laws you make have to be compatible with free speech laws.
And the Constitution of the Republic.
And the Constitution,
Yeah.
you know. And that's why I'm saying, and also the countries you mentioned are not democracy.
Are not
They're
democratic
not seen
countries.
as democracy. But in democratic countries, everybody is wrestling with the question because, you know, even for those who believe in absolute free speech, there are concerns about the abuse of social media, the antisocial behavior on social media. You know, cyberbullying, like I said, you know, hate speech, you know, pornography, all of those things that give us a reason to be concerned. But I think that you can use existing laws that speak to some of those issues to regulate. You probably don't need special laws.
Dr. Gadjipo, we're grateful for your time. We know you're an extremely busy person, and we're glad that you could make time to join us. Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Right, Dr. Audrey Gadjipo is an associate professor of the University of Ghana's School of Communication Studies. We still have Alpha Amoni, GJ president, on the line, but I'll get to the studio where I have the director of Blogging Ghana, Edward Tego. How are you?
I'm fine. How
now,
are you?
We're all here talking about restriction of, well, I don't want to use the word restriction or regulation, but if government says that we need to bring sanity to the cyberspace, that would include some form of restrictions on social media. As a person from Blogging Ghana, do you think that any rule or any regulation or any restriction enforced to bring controls to social media will be good or bad for freedom of expression?
Well, of course, as a blogger, I can't say yes or no. It depends on what forms of restriction or controls. For me, I feel social media's biggest strength is its biggest weakness, anonymity. The fact that I can go online and without you knowing exactly who I am,
you are,
I can actually bring
you can call yourself K whilst in fact you are Y.
Exactly, or I can be a female and actually post my post.
But is that not the concern that the minister is raising, that we need to now protect privacy of individuals? Because you go on social media, you come as Y whilst you are actually called K, and you tarnish the hard-won reputation of an individual, a citizen, maybe the president of the Republic of Ghana, and we can't track you down, we can't trace you, we cannot hold you responsible for your words. So that's bad, isn't it?
So if you can't, then how can you control me? If you don't know who is behind it, if you don't know which part of a cry I'm in, how do you arrest me then?
So really you say that any controls of this nature will not work?
Control to some extent is very possible, very feasible. However, I can go online today, create a Twitter account, call it John Dramani Mahama, start tweeting. What I would actually suggest or recommend is self-censorship or community censorship. We had the Chief of Staff very recently make a very unfortunate comment. The whole community came to say this is wrong.
What comment was that?
He mentioned that Yvonne Nelson and
right, I mean a presidential staff, so it wasn't the Chief of Staff. I do not want us to repeat that, where they made references calling names, some people prostitutes, and all of that.
Exactly. So that comment, actually, the whole community came and attacked that comment.
And eventually, Alidu Haruna apologized.
Correct. That's what I recommend. I recommend community censorship. If obviously someone says something bad and it is truly wrong, people would come and actually attack and condemn. And I feel there are enough social media tools to actually do that. One, there are reporting buttons which people hardly use. If I feel that what you have written is abusive, I can report and Facebook would be notified. But people don't
take action.
Exactly.
So let me take this to Alpha Amoni. It's a very important one. Mr. Amoni, if you're still there, I mean the Ghana blogger, the guy from Ghana blog Blogging Ghana is raising a very important issue of self-censorship. So, for example, Dr. Gajapo has mentioned that if we regulate social media, we might be doing that at the expense of the constitutionally guaranteed freedoms which we have. But then, if we use self-censorship, individuals take responsibility for what they put on air or on social media, that will go a long way. Is this something that you feel should be the direction rather than regulations?
And self-censorship connotes something offensive, and it takes us back to those ideas where the fear of God so to speak will cause the journalists to abandon their God-given courage and boldness to practice journalism, because they need a sense of courage. Not necessarily be a paragon of courage or of jealousy, but at least you should have that sense of character and sense of conviction that what you are doing is right, and you speak or dance regardless of the threat. But they try to do this with the fact that they morph into self-censorship, and this also has to be taken. As just as it was signed thankfully to the judgment of history. So what we did now, I believe, is educate, massive education on the dangers and implications of very forceful, of very life, of something from people's liberty, sovereign rights, and all that. I believe whilst activating the law, I think the power of the state approach to this, whilst massively educating social media activists on the dangers of abusing their rights of freedom of expression. At the same time, we need to educate them, and then they should lodge in their memory that yes, we are out in society covered by rule of law. So in a rule of law dispensation, if you malign, if you take someone,
you must take responsibility for those.
You know what? Yes, if you find yourself on the wrong side of the law, you're made to take a fighting egg.
Right.
My landlord friend thought that our laws are consistent. Now, 160, 162 give us all the latitude that take to operate as journalists. I believe also applies to social media. But at the same time, Article 164 imposes national security, national morality, and public order restrictions on the media. So this should also apply to social media activities.
Right, Mr. Money, we're grateful for your time. That's all time will allow us, and thank you very much. Alpha Money is president of the Ghana Journalists Association. Mr. Tigo, I have a very short time to go now. Blogging Ghana, you do not think that any restrictions or regulations in Ghana will ever work?
We feel that the laws that apply to traditional media, such as the law against pornography, the law against pedophilia, will be able to actually regulate or help keep sanity.
Oh, so you support some form of regulations to bring sanity.
Yes, to bring sanity.
Let's say if Facebook allows you to post nude pictures, the Ghana government should put in place checks to ensure you cannot do that. Something like that is good.
Exactly. But then you can't go beyond a certain point, because Facebook in itself, its biggest strength is its weakness, and its weakness is its biggest strength.
What is the situation in China, Cuba, Russia, and all those other places?
Unfortunately or fortunately, those regions are under different jurisdictions.
Well, you are not telling me what the situation is. For example, in China, if you have a Facebook account, can you log in?
Well, you can access China legally. You can access Twitter legally in China right now. They have the Weibo, which is a local Twitter that they promote. In Cuba, South Korea, legally, the government owns every connected computer, and so they can actually shut you down because it's theirs.
See.
In Ghana, that's not the case. I own my own PC, I own my own phone. However, what I'm saying is, if I went to the Flagstaff House and I insulted the president verbally, and that was illegal, if I did it on Twitter, it is still illegal. We don't need any
So
new
you
rules.
think that such laws must work so that we bring controls, certain controls which will make people more disciplined?
Correct. So the question is, how do we transfer the traditional equipment to online equipment? If I insulted President Mahama verbally, you could arrest me. But are we equipping the authorities now to actually arrest someone who insults President Mahama online? That's the question.
Right, so we don't know how this can be done. And I must tell you that we made several attempts to reach the Ministry of Communication and speak to officials there, but we didn't get through. We would have put some of these critical questions to them. What forms of measures do they plan putting in place to bring sanity to Ghana's cyber media space? We've had a very interesting conversation, and we will continue on Joy News Interactive shortly.